might be asking, how do I even begin to learn how to program? So I'm going to give you 3 different ways, well actually 4 different ways on resources that you can use to learn programming, and specifically what programming language to choose as your first language to learn. Okay guys, as a quick little aside, what is programming? I think programming is just 2 simple things. Problem decomposition, that is just a fancy, kind of brainy way to say that you're able to divide or make big problems into very, very small problems, like the smallest unit possible. And then once you're able to solve those little tiny problems, it's easier to solve the big problems. And then second, the ability to transfer data from point A to point B as efficiently as possible. So just think about what you actually want to build, and that will really guide your learning path. So for example, like if you want to do a lot of data analytics, data analysis, automation things, or you want a little bit of a slower learning curve, then I would recommend, or not slower, but easier learning curve that you'll be able to learn it fast. The language that's very human readable too, I would recommend Python. It's actually the first programming languages that I learned on my programming learning journey, being a self-taught software engineer. And the actual first book I read was this book right here, Automate the Boring Stuff with Python by Al Schreiber. So why is this book so good? This book is great because it kind of takes you through just a high-level overview on all of the syntax and grammar of a programming language. So how to set up variables, how to write your own functions, how to like iterate or go over through stuff in a loop, which he'll explain in the book when you read it. But you know, the basic programming stuff that you'll learn for any one of these programming languages. But I think one of the great things is he starts adding more and more challenging things to the chapters as you go on. So for example, you first learn about basic data structures and then start getting into manipulating strings, cleansing data, writing and reading files on your file system, organizing those files, web scraping, automating, running strings and information to Excel spreadsheets, Google spreadsheets, automatic emails. So I think this is a great thing if you want to automate certain things in your life. So just off the top of my head, let's say that you want to automatically tweet something. Python is a great language for you to learn how to do that. So just think about different things that maybe require a lot of manual effort at your job or at work, and think about ways you can break it down into simple steps. Once you do that, basically all you're doing is translating those steps into a programming language. So Python's really good at that. And kind of just give one more example. Like at work, I had to automate a bunch of Microsoft Excel entry, so text, hundreds of thousands of lines of code, and instead of having to do that manually, I was able to use Python in a very short script, around 50 lines of code, automate the whole thing where it was all processed. So this book is really great, helped me start my programming journey. Now along the way, as you become more and more skilled at Python, you're going to kind of develop those skills, and I would recommend these 2 resources. So Real Python is a great blog and subscription service. You actually don't have to pay for it. They have a lot of great free blogs. So if you ever run into like a specific error or like a specific concept like classes or object-oriented programming in Python, just type in Real Python and that concept, and there's sure to be a great tutorial here. I learned a lot about the language through this series of blogs and website. Now let's say you want to take it more into data analytics, machine learning, maybe even artificial intelligence. I would actually recommend DataCamp. It's not a free resource, but I think it's well worth investment once you become a little bit intuitive on the basics after you read this book. Now let's say, hey Kevin, I don't want to worry about automation, or I'm not really interested in data analytics just yet. I'm more interested in building my own websites or web development. Then I would recommend JavaScript. So there's 2 great resources that you can use, and they're both free. So let's jump into that. So the first one is from the University of Helsinki. So fullstackopen.com. Basically, it's a whole course. I think you could finish this maybe in 10 to 20 hours, just depending on how fast a reader you are. But it goes through the fundamentals of everything, how you can build a full stack application. So what is a full stack application? Think about a website in 2 parts. The front end, which the users see, So all the pretty stuff, all the buttons and clicking like this, you click on something, things are highlighted. In the back end, where data is moved, manipulated, and processed. So you learn about a lot of the front-end technologies that are popular today, like React. You learn about a lot of the back-end technologies, like Express and Node.js, and how to form an API. This one specifically talks about a form of data transfer called GraphQL, but this is a great start, and you can start basing this basic project and start doing more complicated things with your own websites. On top of that, another great resource for web development is free CodeCamp. So the thing I like about this is it takes you from absolutely no knowledge to actually attempting to create these big API projects and websites. The only thing you have to kind of be worried about is that it doesn't hold your hand a lot, and then if you get stuck, check the forums, or you have to do your own kind of search. So you'll learn a lot how to build things through this free resources, so I highly recommend it. Now, finally, let's say that you want to give yourself a challenge. You can learn Java. So Java is great for different types of industries. So for example, the financial industry or fintech uses Java a lot. So Java is one of the most popular programming languages. Looks good in your resume, and it does come with a little bit of weight. It's like a little bit more harder than I would say Python. For example, this was actually the first programming language that I attempted to learn, and it scared me out programming for like a year. But that's because I didn't really understand the necessity of certain things in this language. But I think a great resource to learn regardless is, again, another offering from University of Helsinki, this Java programming MOOC. And don't worry, guys, I'm going to add all these links for every different one of these languages in the YouTube description below. And yeah, basically just go through this whole two course curriculum, and you'll learn a lot about the kind of the details of the language, and then also kind of do it through project-based learning. So another great free resource to learn the fundamentals of Java, object-oriented programming, and the different data types in the language as well. Another great resource, and I'm a big proponent of this, is project-based learning or exercise-based learning. Programming by Doing gives you a list of, I think, 200 plus exercises, where in Java you try to you get a prompt for a certain problem, and then you try to accomplish it. And obviously you give yourself points based on the honor system. I don't think they track it, but it gets higher in difficulty as you go deeper into the list. So another great resource. And then let's say you want to learn more details about the language from top to bottom. This is a book I read later last year, and it's fantastic. I learned a lot about Java. The only other thing I'll add is if you have learned other language first and are transitioning to Java, a great fast way to learn is to actually do coding interview questions in Java, and then learn as you go. So kind of quick tip there. And finally, with any one of these languages, JavaScript, Python, Java, you can actually practice programming every single day by doing what is known as a coding interview problem or a programming interview problem. These tend to be algorithmic, just meaning that you have to use a certain type of data with certain types of problems. You try to optimize for like what programs run faster or use less memory. So just a fun exercise that I do personally. I try to do at least 2 questions a day because it ensures I program every single day. But LeetCode, Project Euler, and Code Forces all have these kind of algorithmic brain teasers that you can program in. Now, I would recommend actually doing LeetCode because they have a great community and it's a little bit easier than Project Euler and Code Forces. But yeah, besides that, this should be an excellent start in your journey. You have to remember the most important thing is consistency. So as long as you start doing that, and do it a little bit every day, you're going to learn and get better at this, and possibly even make it a career. Well, anyways, thanks guys for joining me, and see you next video.